Good evening. The campaign for Dubuque Municipal Internet is a grassroots effort which demands that the City of Dubuque establish an affordable, fast, democratically controlled municipal internet service provider for all residents and businesses in the City of Dubuque with guaranteed net neutrality. We launched our campaign on December 15th of 2017 following the FCC's repeal of net neutrality, which required ISPs to provide neutral access to websites. As a result of its repeal, ISPs can now charge for differential access, slow access to sites that do not generate profits for them, and figure out other ways to fleece consumers. Many cities across the country have come to the same conclusion as we have, that the only way to ensure a neutral internet under present regulatory conditions is to create publicly owned and operated ISPs, which allow citizens to write their own rules. Municipal ISPs are affordable, much faster than existing options, reliable, and democratically controlled. This means they serve citizens' interests rather than the interests of corporate monopolies. As Cedar Falls demonstrates, when an ISP is owned by the people and run for the people, it can guarantee net neutrality. We want Dubuque to follow the lead of Cedar Falls and create a utility that guarantees neutral access by mandate. During the winter, we held 3 events for people interested in the campaign, including a public forum, which was held on February 20th of 2018. During our forum, we heard from educators, students, business owners, and other Dubuquers, all of whom favor municipal internet. We also heard from 2 invited experts, both of whom spoke of the benefits, feasibility, and viability of building out our own fiber broadband to residential homes. Curtis Dean, president of Smart Source Consulting, and David Schilling, communications service manager of Cedar Falls Utilities. I am here with a group of concerned citizens. If you're here with Campaign for Municipal Internet, please raise your hand. We are submitting signatures and requesting the City Council to pursue a feasibility study to investigate the feasibility of municipal broadband in Dubuque. Although the city performed a feasibility study over a decade ago, the cost of technology has gone down considerably since that time. As of April 1st, 2018, we have collected 647 signatories contained herein on our petition. Our team of activists use a combination of social media outreach, paid advertisements, and in-person canvassing to generate interest and recruit signatories. In the months ahead, we plan to continue collecting signatures and building support among the electorate, your citizens, for support for this important service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Swift and I'm a telecommuter, resident of Dubuque, and internet power user. I consider myself to be an internet power user because I work with hundreds of gigabytes of data each month and I upload and download from my employer. I also participate in video conference calls and learn new skills on the internet. The internet is very important to me, and 2017 was a bad year for the internet. In March of 2017, Congress replaced privacy rules for internet connections, allowing internet service providers to legally collect and sell the browsing history of their customers, as well as any other information that they can glean from their customer's connection. Without regulation and transparency, we do not have control of our own data and have no way to hold the internet service providers accountable for what they do with this data. In December of 2017, net neutrality was repealed, which allows internet service providers to throttle network speeds at their own discretion, potentially slowing any content that they don't like for whatever reason. As a citizen of Dubuque and as an internet power user, these 2 repeals worry me. There simply isn't enough competition in Dubuque for me to just choose another internet provider that will protect my privacy and guarantee my content won't be throttled. There's only one provider in my neighborhood that meets my internet needs as a telecommuter. I rely on the internet for my livelihood, and I don't have the option to just switch. What am I supposed to do if they start throttling the gigs and gigs of data that I upload and download every day? Or throttle the services that I use for my telecommuting for my job? Or, do I threaten to change carriers? Hardly. It's not an option in Dubuque. The only option I have is to leave my neighborhood and move to a different part of town that has more than one internet provider to choose from, or to leave Dubuque altogether and move to a town like Bellevue that has municipal internet. I think the best solution for this lack of competition in Dubuque is to have a municipal internet service. or at least look into it since it's been over 10 years since it was last talked about. I also think it's the only way we can really guarantee net neutrality and privacy for internet users in Dubuque. A municipal internet service would attract people who want and need to commute, or telecommute. This is one way to bring money into our community while simultaneously slowing the brain drain that Iowa has been fighting for years. Dubuque needs internet that's fast, neutral, and private. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Paul Yuzo. I live just south of UD, and I am delighted to have moved back to Dubuque. I chose to come back to Dubuque. Lived here from 88 to 92. Then my profession took me all over Iowa. I left a son here. I left a couple of grandsons here, and it seems like a natural place, and I came back, and I find this wonderful progressive community. This is a great place to live. But I want to appeal. You heard a couple of good reasons for municipal broadband. But at the very core of it is the job of government to protect its citizens and its citizens' rights. A list of rights are in the Constitution. At the end of the Constitution, we call it the Bill of Rights. There's another list that Franklin Roosevelt proposed. Neither one of those had in mind this thing called the internet. But it's all embodied in those first ones about freedom of speech and so forth. We must have that freedom of speech. It is the freedom to water is not included in any of those documents. But we assume it, and the city guarantees it with the municipal water service and sewer service. And I believe the same thing needs to be done to protect the rights of our citizens to education, to information, to citizen work, the kind of thing we're doing right here. Those need to be guaranteed by the government. And unfortunately, the government also has in its constituency these loud and very free of speech corporations. And I could go wax on another issue there, which I won't, that has to do with the voice of those corporations. The voice of the citizens has to be heard first. The rights of those citizens has to be protected first. And that's your job, and that's my job, and that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Shaw.
Just want to use this opportunity just to hold a discussion. We heard, I guess a request for feasibility analysis on the Dubuque Municipal Internet option. I'm curious to know what the other council members, what your thoughts are on this.
Well, I can tell you myself, I remember those conversations we had a number of years ago, and it's certainly a different landscape today. I don't have any clue about what anything like that would cost anymore. I think it's certainly an option that be worth looking at. If it was financially in the cards, the sooner the better.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Larson?
since really what they're requesting is for us to look into it with the feasibility study, I would support that idea as well. Especially in the north end, we've got a food desert up there, and we also happen to have a little bit of an internet desert as well. So I've heard that from a lot of folks too, that they don't have many options, and so I would support maybe adding it to the agenda or something, looking into it next time.
Mr. Mayor,
Mike?
the council's had a long-standing practice, which I think is a healthy one and a good one. First of all, we don't have any resources allocated to do this. Is that they have a goal set. You have a goal setting process in August. At that goal setting process, you establish what the priorities are for the city and the next budget process. And so if that goal setting process, you were to say one of the priorities is to do a feasibility study, then we would look at through the budget process how to identify the resources to recommend to you that you could the city would be able to afford to do the feasibility study. And then you would consider that through the budget process amongst all the other requests and demands that you have for the money you'll have, which the demands will be much greater than the money. And then you would decide whether that was actually would be the allocation of resource.
Yeah, that certainly gives us, what, 5 months? 4 or 5 months for a lot of feedback from citizens and, before we go into goal setting. Mr. Resnick?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Short of a feasibility study, I think maybe we could just have the chair of the information systems come in and just give us a brief update, just get us to some of the issues. And then I think she could almost talk about off the top of her head about the different costs and just to educate us generally before we get into the idea of specifics. Sometimes things aren't even within the realm of, that's not even worth considering, depending on the situation. She might come in and say, this is, it's a very real possibility, or she can, she's very, very up to date on things, and she could probably just give us a general reading about that topic before we get in and get to the next step. So I'm hoping before we do these step by step, which is the, I think, intelligent thing to do, a step by step process, we begin with just an overview by one of our staff who is, very well educated and up to date on this type of thing. So maybe just an update. Again, Mr. Van Milligan, I don't know if if it would be too much to ask for her to come up and maybe I'm underestimating what it takes to just give us, an overview of the, what's going on in the world of tech, and if this is even something we should even consider spending money on a feasibility study for.
I'd really like to echo what Councilman Resnick had stated, that having that early insight, I think, would be very beneficial. And so I'd be very interested in that as well. I guess my other question is do we currently have an understanding of what the cost of the feasibility analysis would be? I know it's been 10 years, but.
We can look at some estimates. I don't have any idea.
Okay. As it does resonate with me. I think some of the objections I've heard are pretty straightforward. We're looking potentially at a very significant capital investment for this, but I think to echo what Councilwoman Larson had pointed out, they're requesting a feasibility analysis, not the investment. Part of the argument that they had made is that we would capture the ability to control our own service, both from a cost and a speed standpoint, as well as our own privacy. And I think there are significant interests in both of those. As was stated, the internet has taken some blows in the last year in terms of our loss of our ability to control our privacy, as well as with the net neutrality repeal, our loss of our ability to control necessarily what we're given from a service provision. So from a feasibility analysis request, to me, I think it's a pretty strong request. Of course, the cost of what that is, even the analysis might cost, is something that needs to be considered. But thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Jones?
From the group's presentation tonight, it sounds like they've had some, a consultant present to them on feasibility. I'd like to see their information.
Yeah. We have plenty of time to collect that. Any other reports? Okay, we do not have a closed session.